Hi, this is Phil Carlton. I want to talk today about adding stippling around a design. It's part of the quilt block wizard, and it's something we almost take for granted now. I know back when I was first writing lessons back in like 3D and 4D, I wrote a lesson to add stippling around a design, and it was like 7 or 8 pages long, and it's something we can do really easily now. So I want to just show a little about that process and maybe give you a couple of tips as I go through. The first thing I do need to do is I need to have a design or a design to add stippling around, and I'm going to use this little Yorkshire Terrier. I'm going to just select it. It's one of our super designs, and just at the default size, click the green check mark to bring that into my hoop. I'm going to go over to the Home tab now, and I'm going to click Cut. Seems a little confusing, but what I've done now is add that design to my clipboard so it will be there when I need it inside the wizard. So now let's go over to the wizard. I'm going to click on Quilt Block, and we have several different options, but I'm going to use the first one today, which is a filled quilt block with an inner embroidery. So that means I'm going to have a block filled with something, in this case stippling, with an embroidery design inside it. I'm going to click Next. And next I can tell it what size quilt block I'm going to use. Now you'll notice if I look at my shape drop down, I have 9 pretty common shapes for doing quilt blocks. For this one I'm going to just go with the default square. I'm not going to worry about rotating it. I'm not going to try and design this on point or anything today. And I do need to tell it how large I want my quilt block to be. So for this example, I'm going to create a 6-inch finished block. So I could come in and try and figure out the millimeters, but an easy way to do this, I'm just going to type 6 and the quote mark for inches, and when I tab out of that field, it's converted it to 152 millimeters. So it's done that math for me, and now I know that I have a 6-inch square. The next thing I want to talk about is this cut line area. So the cut line is going to let me add a seam allowance inside my hoop. So I'm going to keep that checked today, and I'm going to click my options. And I have 2 different settings here inside the cut line options. I can tell it how far away I want from the edge of the block, and I want to go with my standard quilting length here. I want a 1/4 inch seam allowance. So I'm going to go 0.25 inch, and again when I tab, it's converted that to 6.4 millimeters, but I have a 1/4 inch margin now. I'm going to leave my stitch length at that 3 millimeter default. It'll be fine for what we're doing. Then I'm going to click OK. And click Next. And then notice I have a button here where I could browse if I was putting stippling around a design that was on my computer. But since I'm using the super design and it's on my clipboard, I can just click Paste. Then I'm going to click Next. And now it lets me make a couple of adjustments to my embroidery. I can rotate the design here if I wanted to rotate my design. I could also rotate it by number, but I'm just going to leave that at the zeros. I could flip it horizontally or I could flip it vertically. And the outline is how close do I want the stippling or my quilting to go to my design. The lower it is, obviously, the closer it's going to get to that design. The larger it is, the more margin I'm going to have between the stippling and my design. I'm going to take it to about a 4. I think that'll get really nice and close, but still leave a little room for the detail of that hair that goes outside the outlines a little bit. Then I'm going to click Next. Now notice it's pretty much done at this point. The default is stipple, and if I go into my options, I do have some adjustments I can make. I can adjust how much space is between the lines of stippling, and I can also adjust the stitch length. Now I do like my stitch length to be just a little bit longer here, maybe a 2.0. A 1.5 is getting down to where it's almost too short. Now there are 2 different styles I can do too. I can do a curved stippling, which is what we're used to seeing, or if I go to straight, when I click OK, it gives it almost a Southwest look. I like that look a lot. It's really not traditional stippling, but a really nifty look nonetheless. I'm going to go back to my options. For this one, I'm going to do curved, and I'm going to make the stippling a little bit tighter by decreasing the gap just a bit. Now I also have the choice to either do a running stitch or a triple stitch, and I decide if I want to do a running or a triple stitch based on what function the stippling is doing. If I'm just trying to quilt a block together, if I'm just trying to do traditional stippling where I'm going to match my thread to my background color, then I'm going to use a running stitch. But if I'm using a really pretty decorative thread and I want this to be part of the design, I'm going to use a triple because it's going to bring that thread out and really enhance the look and let the stippling become a design element. I'm going to go ahead and click OK. And I will just point out here we have several different other options that we could use. We could do channel quilting, and I just want to show one of those. We could do any kind of crosshatch, and we have a bunch of different options there. The motif would let me use a decorative stitch as my background. I have echo quilting. Contour is going to follow the shape and kind of build out as it goes. And then I can even use like a decorative shape that goes out. So play with these different options because you're going to find it does some really nifty things. I'm going to go back to the stippling that I had. I'm going to call that good. And I'm going to click Finish. So now I've created this block. The first thing I want you to notice is the design has orange handles on the corners. The orange handles always tell me I have a group of designs here in the embroidery. So there's more than one design in this selection. Let's go over to the Home tab, and I'm going to click Ungroup. So now they're no longer grouped. I still have them all selected though. So I'm going to click outside the hoop so nothing is selected. Then use the Next Design button to walk through the different pieces. When I click Next Design the first time, it shows me the first thing that's going to stitch. The first thing in my hoop is the dog, the original design we put the stippling around. I'm going to click Next a second time, and you'll notice now in my color select list I have a blue color, and this is going to be my stippling. And then when I click Next Design the third time, now I have the outline selected. I'm going to change this to a different color by double-clicking on the blue, and I'm going to change it to a red so it's a little bit easier to see. And then go into the design player. And if you'll look here now, we're going to see the design in the middle, then the stippling, and then a 1/4 inch out from my block, because we created that 1/4 inch seam allowance. I have that running stitch all the way around. So if you stitch this block out and then come with a rotary cutter and rotary cut right on that outside edge, you're going to have a finished 6-inch quilt block with a 1/4 inch seam allowance. Thank you so much for watching. I hope today you learned a little about the Quilt Block Wizard and maybe a couple of hints that will help you as you're working in Premiere Plus 2. Have a great day.